Hello and a very warm welcome to the late breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage and me, Ben Hocking, here for a summer break Sunday, Sam. Oh, yes. That's a lot of S's in there.
Summer break Sunday, Sam Sage, on a sleepy Sunday. I haven't got an S related to a month, unfortunately. I was going to drop like a,
and it's almost September.
Yeah, it's almost September. And we've got so much to speak about. The news is coming thick and fast. We've got loads of changes going on. But, just simmer down. Enjoy your summer break. Put your feet up and listen to a little of the old late breaking boys, because we're having a good old time this summer break. Please bring back the races.
But please. It's been a week.
I just miss it. I mean, we moan about it. 24? Oh, that's too many. I'd like another one now.
Yeah, it does. I last weekend when Spa was on, I was like, yeah, do you know what? Maybe I'm ready for a break from F1, but okay.
You get one day. You get one day off. And it's like, okay, I'm back.
So if that intro's anything to go by, this could be unhinged. But you're right, Sam. There is still a lot to talk about in the world of F1. Most importantly, I've decided to bring back F1 Who Are You as a game. Last seen in 2004. So that'll be coming up later on. Andrea Stella, he's extended his contract at McLaren. Bit on Jonathan Wheatley leaving Red Bull and joining Audi. But we're going to start with McLaren because they have some discussions over the summer break as to what they do about their drivers. We saw it in Hungary. We didn't see it in Belgium, largely thanks to the fact that they were never really close to one another. But Zach Brown was talking about what they're going to do regarding team orders or no team orders for the second half of this season. Zach Brown said it's ultimately going to be Andrea's call. The Constructors' Championship, while it's definitely not going to be easy, is well within reach. I think the challenge on the drivers' front is that Max's bad days are second and third places, so it's hard to make those clawbacks that we're making on the Constructors that we could do because Sergio Perez is struggling at the moment. But we also know he's capable of turning it on at any moment. This will be something I think we discuss over the summer break. What do you think on this one, Sam? Oscar Piastri who is behind Lando Norris in the championship, has said he would be willing to play the second driver role if it came to that. Lando Norris, on the other hand, has very much said, I haven't earned it. How do you think that's going to go for the second half of this year?
I think they're in a really tricky situation here. And from an entirely entertainment perspective, I obviously don't want them to have team orders. I don't want to see drivers sitting behind 1-2. Let's say they go into the second half of the season, they're very dominant. I do not want to see every single race. No, you can't fight for the win. No, you can't. For me, as a viewer, and you lot listening and watching on YouTube, which you can watch Late Breaking F1, it is not fun. We've seen it before with loads of teams previously. Most notably, of course, Ferrari back in the day have had some seriously strong team orders, and it can kill the vibe a little bit for a championship fight. Internally, on the other hand, competitively, I understand focusing your time and energy to kind of like a spearhead, putting all your eggs in one basket and making sure that you're driving forward with your most clear and obvious possibility of winning. The issue for them is the clear and obvious possibility of winning is actually a lot closer, I think, than it seems. As much as we've all given Norris a lot of, he's doing really, really well this season, and he is, the gap is much smaller than I think it appears. I think we did that stat last week about, the last 8 Grand Prix. Well, Piastri's actually scored 10 points more than Norris in the last 8 Grand Prix. And in the championship at the moment, whilst Norris is leading the way, there's only 32 points between them. What happens if we get into Zandvoort, Piastri wins, Norris DNFs? There's 7 points between them at that point. So it's really tricky to start segregating off one of your drivers just because you think that you've got the better opportunity. If I'm totally honest with them, I feel like McLaren might go for whoever's in front at the time will continue to be in front at the time during the race. I don't know if they'll be doing too many clear and obvious, swap the cars round, the championship is where it's going. I think Piastri is doing the decent thing and what I'd expect from Piastri because of who he is and going, I'll play second fiddle. It's only my first proper series in a really competitive car where race wins are on the cards. He's got a race win, of course, under his belt now. I think Norris is probably a little bit more, I'm hungry for some success. I've stuck it out here at McLaren while it wasn't a great time, and now I'm having a very good time. And if anyone's going to get a go first, it should be me. I don't disagree with that sentiment. It's a tricky conversation on their hands. I would actually like them to just let it run. But for the terms of the championship, I think constructors is where they should focus. I think drivers is going to be tricky, depending on just how good that Red Bull is.
Let it run for another 4 or 5 races and then maybe reassess? Do you think
Yeah, I'd maybe get past Singapore into that area of the season. Let's see what the next 3 or 4 races bring. And then I would then go, right, you know what? Norris has actually scored another 25 points more than Piastri. That's where we're going for the final 6 races of the season.
What do you think, Harry? Do you think that they will make a change in approach, or do you think the way that they are right now is fine and they'll just keep going that way?
And firstly, I respect Zach Brown for saying ultimately it's Andrea Stella's call, because that is the ultimate.
Pass the buck, baby.
Pass the buck.
Here's your new contract. By the way, that's your call.
I'm marketing bag. I will not make people cry.
By the way, that's all on you, no matter whether it's right or wrong.
I only fire drivers. I don't make any decisions about them when they're with us.
But yeah, I think it's a tricky one for McLaren, because they're in this odd situation where there's a realistic chance, based on current form, they could win the constructors here, but the drivers is a much trickier one. So it would take. I feel like they're going to have to assess on what's happening, in the next few races, as you say, not just with their own drivers, which, as you say, Sam, it's been quite close in terms of points over the last 3 races, but also what happens with Max. If Max suddenly starts dropping a load of points for some reason or another, car issues, he has a couple of retirements, then maybe they need to chuck their weight behind Norris if he's the closest to him in the championship. But as Zach Brown rightly points out, Max Verstappen's worst days means he gets a podium, which
He was 4th.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
come on.
Hungary was his worst day this year. What did he get? Like 6th or something. So it's a tricky one for them to catch up. So trying to make Piastri get out the way for Norris is excuse me, is tricky. But yeah, I think they just got to see how it goes. I don't think they can start implementing this yet, and their focus should be on gaining the maximum amount of points for McLaren. I know there'll be lots of people that say, come the end of the year, if it is a tight championship between Verstappen and Norris, will things like Hungary come back to haunt them? But I just don't see how they can base it off that at this point, because it's not like they've been in the fight the whole year. The beginning of the year, they certainly weren't. So it's a tricky one, but they're going to have to play it. They can't make a call now and stick to it. I think they have to do it play by play. But for now, I think they stick to what they've been doing, because scoring the maximum amount of points for McLaren has got to be their priority.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with what you said. And if Oscar Piastri hadn't made such a big step forward in the last sort of couple of months, I would probably agree with Lando Norris taking the priority from here. But if Piastri hadn't improved that much, then Norris would have a far bigger gap in the championship. Like you say, Sam, it's only 32 points. They're not separated by 100 points. They're not separated by even 50 points. That is only just over 1 race win. It's pretty close. And as you say, last 10 Grand Prix, after Miami, Lando Norris was on 83 points, which was pretty much double what Oscar Piastri had on 41. And in the last 10 Grand Prix, Piastri scored 10. In the last 8 Grand Prix, Piastri scored 10 more points, which even with, let's say, Austria, where Lando Norris certainly scored fewer points than he should have done, I don't know, give him a first or second place there, and it's still only 10 points the other way. Point is, it's been very close. I was quite critical of Piastri in the first part of this year, because I don't think he'd made that step forward. Well, he has now. And I think what he's earned is, at least for now, not having to play second driver. And look, I mean, there's no talks like this at Ferrari either, right? Like, Ferrari are potentially in a Constructors' Championship fight if they can get the car together. I haven't heard any talk about Charles Leclerc, who is the leading point scorer there, being the number 1, or Sainz being the number 2 driver. It's not something they're entertaining. And I don't think for now it should be something that McLaren entertains either. And you both put stress on the Constructors' Championship. Yeah, it's been a while. This isn't Red Bull or Mercedes that have had success in the last couple of years. If you want to ask both of the McLaren drivers, how did you feel the last time McLaren won the Constructors' Championship? They'd both give you the same answer, which was, we weren't alive. The last Constructors' Championship was 1998. They were born just after that. Now, granted, 2007.
You were barely alive.
Well, yeah, exactly. I remember loving that moment when I was 2 years old. But 2007, right? I know they had the points to win the championship if they weren't disqualified for being naughty boys and girls. But Last championship win, you do have to go all the way back to 98. Last Drivers' Championship, of course, was Hamilton in 2008. So, point being, this is a team that has not had success in a very long time. It would be in their best interest not to screw it up. I do not want a situation at the end of this season where they are so focused on team orders and the Drivers' Championship that they forget that there's a Constructors' Championship that is very, very winnable. Very winnable at this point.
Yeah, I think they need to do two things. McLaren themselves need to make it clear what they're doing from this point moving forward. Because if that conversation is starting to come out, they can't have another Hungary, right? If we do get another Hungary opportunity, that will go wrong for them eventually. If they're faffing around, I'll give up X time, you catch up to me. In that situation, before the race even starts, they need to be clear what the plan is. I don't care what that plan is. I don't care. If one of your drivers is 7 seconds ahead and you go, well, we just agreed that if someone's 7 seconds ahead, it stays that way. Fine. If you've pre-agreed it, fine. But you need to be clear because it will cost you. Secondly, I think Lando Norris has only got himself to blame a little bit here. His form in the last few races, and of course, the fact that he was, I would still argue, victim to Max Verstappen moving over in Austria, yes, has cost him points. He's the one that's struggling with his race starts. He's not getting things executed when it comes down to the absolute wire. It's costing him when he could be, I think, at least another 10, 15 points further ahead in the championship than he actually is. And that's going to be continuous throughout the season if he doesn't nip those little mistakes in the bud and actually start being far more ruthless with what he's doing, much like Max Verstappen is able to do, where, as we've already mentioned, the worst day Max Verstappen's had in the last few Grand Prix was 5th place in Hungary after he absolutely torpedoed into the side of Lewis Hamilton. If that's as bad as it gets for Max Verstappen, you are up against the ultimate end boss. You know, the health bar is the size of the screen and you've got to keep chipping away at it time and time again. So Lando's still got a lot of work to do, even if he does think that he's got a title fight on his hands. It's not going to be as simple as just sitting in the best car and hoping.
Piastri has said, you know, he is open to being a second driver or playing the number 2 role if it was necessary later in this season, Harry. Have they just, McLaren, got themselves an absolute gem of a driver, or in reality would it go down differently? What do you think?
I think he's pretty honest, and again, he's fairly early in his career. He knows that he's got a long way to go, and there's no point burning bridges at this point. Again, in reality, it might play out differently. But even when, you know, in Hungary, when it didn't go his way, there was no particular whinging over the radio from Piastri in terms of the situation had gone against him. Not that we heard. All the radio was just between Norris and the team, but I think Piastri's smart enough to know that what goes around comes around, and you know it's unlikely he'll be the one challenging Verstappen for the championship. So if he has to back up Norris and, you know, help the team, then I think he's very sensible to say that he will do that, because it's entirely feasible that even this time next year it could be Piastri in that fight as well. And I'm not saying Norris won't be, but he'll want the help where he can get it. So I think, yeah, they've done well. They've done well with securing Oscar Piastri services, as we already knew. But I think he's also playing the game well.
Yeah, I agree, and I think he'll do whatever's necessary for the team. I would just say to Oscar Piastri, stand up for yourself. You know, it is close between himself and Lando Norris at the moment. Play the team game, sure, but equally, if for whatever reason a Drivers' Championship does come into reach, I don't think it will this year, but if it does, make sure you stand up for yourself, because F1's a funny world. I know McLaren are in a great spot right now. They should be in a great spot for years to come. Piastri's obviously very young. You never know. You never know when that next opportunity is coming along. Still waiting for Charles Leclerc's first. It might come around at some point. It might not. And I half joke, but I'm half serious as well. Like you never know when that next opportunity for a title is going to come around. So even though he might argue at the moment, he isn't quite in the frame in that discussion. If a few of these races go his way and suddenly he thinks he is, you know, make sure you're not just rolling over at the first opportunity. That's all I'll say. What do you think, Sam?
We've got Leclerc, and now we've got Angel Boy Piastri. And obviously they're related, of course, through Piastri's own admission.
In no way is that catching on.
Angel Piastri. Fly with your wings, Oscar. Honestly, I actually think this is incredibly clever from Oscar Piastri. He is behind currently in the points tally. He did have a poor start to the season. He has caught back up. The gap is still there. It's not sizable, but it does exist. It would take, as we've already mentioned, one race to go completely on its head for him to essentially be back in the fight with Lando Norris in second place in this championship and not too far off Max Verstappen. He's, I think, playing a very clever team and PR game to go, yeah, I'll move it out the way. You know what? No problem. I'll play the team game. One race changes. Guys, I'm actually maybe the best chance now. Do you remember how I said that I would happily be second driver, but I'm now clearly the best opportunity?
I'm also happy to be first driver.
I also think my teammate should play the team game. Remember how I put my hands up immediately and said, I will be second driver. Well, it's on me to win now, guys. What's he going to do? I just think this is very clever positioning himself. He's playing the odds. He's already behind. So why not live up to that a little bit? I think everyone internally knows that Oscar Piastri is rife with talent and he will happily take win after win after win if presented towards him. I think he's getting to that point. We were very critical of him up until about Australia. And from that point onwards, he has been really fantastic. So it's on the cards for him. It's really like, it's just about to get there where he's going to start being very, very successful. One or two races go his way, he will be the guy in the front seat. I just think he's been very clever. I think this is smart from him. I like this approach. Like you said, don't roll over, but play your cards. Be careful.
Okay, let's take our first break on this episode. On the other side, we're chatting about Jonathan Wheatley joining Audi. Welcome back, everyone. So at the moment, I'm obviously with the summer break. I have a lot more time on my hands and I have this favorite podcast and I would really like to, with my added time I have in my day, show some appreciation, maybe using some sort of rating system, but I'm completely stumped for ideas, Harry. Have you got any?
You said that like it was a child's book, that end bit.
Goodness me. I think what my dear friend Ben Hocking was referring to there is a 5-star rating on your chosen podcast platform, and mainly Apple. But anyway, you want to give us a 5-star, please do, folks, because it really, really helps us. And as I say every time we plug this, you all respond magnificently. I actually was looking through some of the latest reviews with our 5 stars. One of them titled "Sam Sage singing." Please have Sam Sage sing more. So,
oh yes, I will. Okay, after you all receive
reviewed by Sam Sage. But it was a 5-star review, and that is all that matters to us. No, but we really do value your support, and it does help the podcast grow. If you give us a 5-star review, you can write anything, as proven by that latest review there.
Not offensive.
Okay, yeah, you can write anything within reason. Please, no offensive ones. We don't like that. But as long as it's a 5-star review, then it's excellent. The words you can write on your latest review are Jonathan Wheatley.
Was that it?
There you go.
No, that's great. Leave it at that.
Jonathan Wheatley is going to be shown this at some point. He's going to be like, what? Why am I on every review comment for this
5-star review?
He's a fan of the podcast.
Jonathan Wheatley.
On top of this, remember, folks, you can now comment on Spotify. So if you want to chat about the episode or you have anything to say and you don't watch on YouTube, leave a comment under the episode. Get involved in the conversation.
If you really love us, we're on YouTube as well as if you're watching on this video. Give us a subscribe on that as well. Patreon whilst you're there. We are quite literally everywhere.
You are plugging us all the way up the extension cable today.
Yeah.
Love that.
All the plugs.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. That's as far as we go.
Well, that's not the end of Jonathan Wheatley. There's more from him because
he's really growing.
He's growing as old Jonathan.
Goodness me.
The current Red Bull sporting director, he'll leave the team at the end of this season to become Audi's F1 team principal. Wheatley has been involved with Red Bull for 18 years, but he'll join Audi's factory team following a period of gardening leave. Audi said in a statement they expect him to start no later than July of 2025. Christian Horner had the following to say: "Everyone at Red Bull Racing and Red Bull Technology wish him all the best in his new role and would like to place our thanks to Jonathan. Red Bull Racing have tremendous strength and depth, and this provides opportunity to elevate others within the team. We will announce a new team structure in the coming weeks." Sam, what are your thoughts on this move?
What a deal from Audi, I think this is. I think 18 years at one F1 team as successful as Red Bull. He's been there, pretty much since the start, pretty much since its inception. I think he joined maybe a year or so after Christian Horner obviously was there from the start. He's the longest running team member. So he's a real foundation. He's one of those key pillars that you look for when you join an organization. Go, well, who are the people that I'm looking to? Who are our leaders? Who are the people that are going to take us through the hard times and lift us up and then also celebrate the good times? And Jonathan Wheatley is quite literally that guy. He's been around for so long. And I would argue there were three pillars as part of this foundation, Christian Horner being one, Adrian Newey being the other, and Jonathan Wheatley being the third. And you've now lost two of those pillars. And I don't know many buildings that can stand with just one of their pillars left. It doesn't feel good right now in terms of, if we get the architects in, go let me know. Is it going to stand up if there's a strong wind? Because I feel like it might fall over. But for Audi, I think this is fantastic. I think if they're looking for someone who comes from competitive background, quite ruthless, has got so many connections in the field, knows how to run a slick operation. Wheatley's been very successful. You don't have to look at the fact that over the last 15 years, they've won, 7 constructors, 8 drivers championships in that time. That's essentially one championship in every other year he's worked at Red Bull. It's a pretty good success rate. That's a 50-50, something I hate, but Jonathan Wheatley loves. And if you're going to start picking up people, well, you've got Binotto, and you think, oh dear, the scales are really tipping against our favour here. How do we balance those? We go with the yin to his yang, and we bring in Jonathan Wheatley on the other side. And now the
scales are really against us with the person we chose to hire.
Hey, that's our own fault.
Oh, we're struggling now.
We're struggling. Give ourselves a handicap here. How do we make it easier again? Turn down the difficulty. I think this is a really strong move, and I do think that he'll be able to, entice over many other key personnel, not just from Red Bull, but from other engineering groups, other teams, people that have worked with him previously, maybe moved on. He's a well-connected and very well-respected man. And I think Binotto, if he's allowed to flourish in his key areas, which it seems like it won't be directly on the track, it looks like it's going to be more managerial and structural. And if Wheatley's allowed to flourish with running what goes on track, hey, it could be a very potent partnership and something that I'm very excited to see.
How do you think he'll get on, Harry?
Yeah, this is an excellent signing by Audi. I mean, only a week after we were criticising them for this weird signing of Matteo Binotto, this one's a much better move. And yeah, for Red Bull, it's a big loss. Like you say, Sam, he's been there for 18 years.
18 years.
But he's been an integral part of that team, and he's never been a team principal before. But as we've seen with the likes of Andrea Stella, I know it's not promoting from within, but going up the next level, it does work. And I think Jonathan Wheatley he'll make an excellent team principal. He is, what's he, sporting director now currently? Him and Ron Meadows from Mercedes are probably the two best sporting directors in F1. We saw it in 2021. Jonathan Wheatley he's very good at his job, and I would suggest he'll be good at his next job. So it's quite the steal from Audi here. And quite, even with Binotto's track record, getting Binotto, who was previously at Ferrari and had lots of success, and getting Jonathan Wheatley from Red Bull, who has had lots of success, it looks good. I know losing Seidel, there was some bad press for them, but this looks pretty good. So I'm very intrigued to see how this goes, because he's not got a lot of time to get things together. And if it's to be believed that they're in a bit of a mess, then he's got a lot to do. But I think he's the right man for the job. And actually not one, I mean, it's not a surprise that I hadn't thought of this, but not really something I'd thought of in terms of, I never thought he would be a contender to even leave Red Bull, let alone go off to Audi. But when that came out, I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's a good old move. Well done, Audi.
It feels right, doesn't it? It
Yeah.
feels right. They're playing F1 manager in real life out here, I think, signing these people. It gives me James Vowles vibes to Williams as well. It feels very similar, right?
Yeah.
To take someone like a second-hand man, which is what James Vowles was, of course, at Mercedes throughout their success, to go, I want that next step. The big dog ain't leaving, the big cheese. So I'm going to go and go somewhere else. And hey, props to him. Hopefully he'll be successful.
I think you can never be 100% sure about someone going into a team principal position because until you've done it, you can't properly tell. However, if you are looking for someone who is arguably who might be the most qualified rookie of all time when it comes to that job role, I think Jonathan Wheatley probably covers that off, given he has been in F1 since 1991, consecutively as well. I don't think he's had any time off from F1 since 1991.
Guy's got a day off for 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. He spent 15 years with Benetton, which later became Renault. That was fairly successful in 2 different eras as well, because he was just about there when Fernando Alonso was winning his championships. And then, of course, he spent 18 years at Red Bull. So, look, he knows his stuff, right? When it comes to sporting regs, when it comes to compliance, he's had heavy involvement in the pit crew at Red Bull. I don't know if you've noticed, pit crew is pretty good at Red Bull. I mean, this year alone, I think they've had maybe 8 of the top 10 pit stops so far this season, and that's not an anomaly. Like, that happens pretty much every year. So he is clearly a very well-rounded individual in terms of his knowledge. He is, on paper at least, exactly what you'd be looking for in a team principal. Again, you can never quite tell until it happens, but this felt like a no-brainer. Sam, what does it say about Red Bull? Does it say anything about Red Bull? We know that they have, you've already referenced Adrian Newey having left this year, another big piece of the puzzle leaving as well. Is this a poor indictment of where Red Bull are, or is this just pure aspiration from Wheatley?
No, it feels like the empire are crumbling. It does feel like, as I mentioned, the 3-pillar analogy, I do think rings very much true. They went from being they're kind of their own band of brothers a little bit, Red Bull. They were kind of, it was us against the world, especially the first time they started winning championships. It was, we're not a car manufacturer. We're coming here and we're starting to unsettle the big boys, and we're doing things our way. We're very different. Our culture's very different. The way we run things along is very different. And I feel like that reached its peak when they beat Mercedes with Max Verstappen in 21. And then they had a great year, of course. They're incredibly dominant, right? And then now we've had the controversy with Christian Horner, which I do think is essentially... They lost Dieter van Mateschitz, whose name I find so hard to say. So, apologies. And Christian Horner's had the controversy, and that's 2 massive blows to essentially the Red Bull aura, the Red Bull reputation, the Red Bull culture. And those key events do tend to show a bit of a seismic shift in personnel, direction, who's going to be the next kind of step for progression in a big organization like this. And I think it makes I'm not shocked that we're seeing such a change in personnel at Red Bull, but I do think for them, we're going to see, probably over the next couple of years, a large period of transition, readjustment, regrowth. I don't think it's over. I think there will be more people leaving, joining, and changing. I don't think they're just going to promote 2 people from within and call it done. I really do think there's going to be a lot more that goes on behind the scenes at Red Bull. But I think they've been unsettled massively by controversy. And people have gone, well, now's the time to escape off to greener pastures and try something new. Get my hands stuck in while it's, the building is crumbling around me. And I don't really blame them. It makes sense. So, yeah, I think that's what's going on at Red Bull. I think they're in a spot of bother.
In Christian Horner's statement, he does reference the fact that with his departure, there will need to be some changes made in terms of the hierarchy, Harry. Do you think that they were somewhat blindsided by this move? And do you think it has anything to do with the fact that Red Bull seemed to, at least off track, be in a spot above her, by the words of some sage?
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal, Jonathan Wheatley leaving. And I'm not suggesting maybe they were blindsided, but yeah, they definitely would have preferred to keep him, given recent events of already losing Adrian Newey. But I know Christian Horner's the king of talking, but he says that they've got a lot of talent within Red Bull that they can promote. And look, Jonathan Wheatley, Adrian Newey, they are very talented individuals, and there's no doubt of their contribution to the team. But Red Bull hasn't won as much as they've won without a lot of other talented people that can step up into these roles. So it's not great, and it's not going to help persuade Max Verstappen to stick around, because you'll be putting people into these roles that are unproven into these roles. So and you know, a lot at the same time, which is you wouldn't, you know, I'm sure Christian Horner wouldn't choose to have these this sort of mass exodus of big names out of the team. But I don't think Red Bull are suddenly going to crumble into nothingness. But it's going to be trickier for them. But I do believe they've got the talent within Red Bull to you know, they may not have dominance and they're not having it anymore anyway. But they've got the talent within Red Bull to still keep on winning even without the likes of Jonathan Wheatley and Adrian Newey, etc. So from a exterior, it doesn't look great for them. But I think, and I'm sure Christian Horner isn't, you know, chilled about it, but I'm not sure he's going to be really, really worried about it either. I think if Verstappen leaves, then it gets to a different point. But right now, I think he's okay.
Toto's got his phone. Verstappen on speed dial, isn't he?
It's ringing him every hour. What about now?
Do you think it's just leaving him a voicemail going, "Fix your car, Christian"?
That might be your best Toto yet.
Oh, sorry. Christian, fix your car.
No, that's worse. Go with the first one.
Damn it.
Yeah, a bonus question for you, Harry, because we did mention this just before we started discussing this topic between the break. We saw, ordinarily when this sort of move happens, we have dual statements by the team that is obviously got someone departing and then the incoming team. Here, we had Red Bull make a statement, silence from Audi for a good few hours. I think it was at least 3 or 4 hours until Audi said something about this. Red Bull playing games? Like, what's up with that?
I really want Audi to not even know they've signed him. They just... All right, fine, fair enough. Come on.
I thought we were getting Michael Barley. Not Jonathan Wheatley.
Nice. Goodness me.
Another farming joke.
Goodness me. Also, we haven't touched on the fact that Ollie Oakes has been...
I'm getting there.
Has been confirmed. Anyway.
How is Trish?
I was getting that joke.
Yeah, I think that is a little bit of gamesmanship from the Red Bull PR team on that front. They're under no obligation. If he's announced he's leaving, then he's announced he's leaving. They're under no obligation to. I mean, I'm sure it's seen as, you know, as courtesy and, you know, working in harmony with other teams here to co-announce where the departing person is going. But Red Bull, it kind of fits into their image. But I guess they're under no obligation to actually do this, and it does seem a bit of a I guess say petty, a little bit of pettiness there from them. But again, I may be entirely wrong, and it may be that Audi just completely not ready for it.
I just completely forgot.
Oh yeah,
today.
Oh, we thought it was tomorrow. But it does seem odd because, yeah, as you say, nowadays teams tend to co-announce things, which, to be honest, is it's not a new thing, but I think even if you went back 10 years, that sort of thing wouldn't.
It's a world of social media thing, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It never used to happen through, like, I don't know, when a driver would swap teams, you wouldn't get a press release that came up with both the team principals sat there.
So you wouldn't often have the same sort of thing, and only for like maybe driver moves. You know, I'm thinking back to like Schumacher retiring and Raikkonen being announced at Ferrari. I mean, that's a while ago now, but that's the only sort of thing we'd have maybe coordinated press releases. But in terms of team personnel, it's not something that used to happen that often. So Red Bull are going back to the old school ways, maybe somewhat. But yeah, I did kind of enjoy the fact that Audi were not ready to go with this. There's someone like desperately writing a press release, kind of crap. How do you spell Wheatley?
Just haven't eaten it.
It's not like you've got a car to build. What are you doing?
I think that's the problem, right? There's no one there to build the car.
It's the same person. Also the PR manager.
Also the social media manager. Yeah, but also going, English.
Oh man. Yeah, so obviously this is a blow for Red Bull. And if we look at the recent departures, you've already mentioned Adrian Newey, and we've got, you know, Rob Marshall, who, by the way, now he's at McLaren, might just be the key to success in F1. Like, have Rob Marshall on your team and you will do well. But you've got those three very key personnel who have all left or are leaving. they're all very talented individuals, which is one thing. But the bigger issue for Red Bull is that all three of those individuals, they started working for Red Bull in 2006, all three of them. They have, obviously Rob left last year, but they are long-term employees of this company. So you are removing a sizable, part of the organization when these people leave. I agree that I do think Red Bull is in a difficult situation, and I think in years to come we will see this season as the start of a decline. I think there's a question mark as to how severe that decline will be and how quickly it happens, but I do think this will be the starting point. However, unlike the departures of Marshall and Adrian Newey, I actually don't think this is an indictment on where Red Bull are, just because I think Jonathan Wheatley, if he'd been offered this 12 months ago or 18 months ago, I still think he'd have taken it. And that's so I don't think it's actually a negative on Red Bull. I do simply think it is Jonathan Wheatley, who is 57 years old. He's been in F1 for a long time. He's got the opportunity to be a team principal, which he's not going to get at his own team, and him seizing that initiative. And I just think that would have happened even when Red Bull were at their utter peak, say at the end of 2022 or last year. So whilst I don't think it's great for Red Bull, I don't actually think this one, I think it's a very similar one to what you've already said about James Vowles. James Vowles realised that it probably wasn't going to happen for him whilst Toto Wolff was in charge at Mercedes. He went off. I think this is a pretty similar scenario. That Bonotto-Wheatley combo, how's that going to work?
Oh, I mean, I don't think they even know. I think as much as Red Bull were a bit arsey and went, we're going to go first. We're going to beat you in social media, like we're going to beat you on the racetrack, which is probably what they're thinking is, because we got what they're like. I think Audi were pretty much going, have we got a social media manager? Who is doing that? Like, I think that's a bit like what's going on at Audi, much like I don't know how those two are going to work it out right now. But also is like a role he's never been in before, right? He's now almost the Zach Brown of Audi Racing here, which is strange that Bonotto has gone from making engines to now running a global corporation that is Audi in terms of their sporting division. And you've now got Wheatley, of course, who has always been relatively second fiddle. He's had a couple of races in charge where things have gone, awry, whatever the phrase is. Awry, I think is the phrase. Thank you, everyone. Getting thumbs up from the team. English isn't my strong point. And, he's clearly a very well regimented man that understands detail and whatnot, but I feel like they're going to have to work. They've got some time, but Wheatley's not joining for another year properly. And I think it might put them on the back foot that he's only going to be there for 6 months before they actually need to get a car on the racetrack. So there's going to be some teething problems, but I also think they're doing it at the right time in the sense that they can have teething problems. No one's expecting Audi to walk in, win the World Championship, leave. I don't think that's the expectations here. So they've got time to work through that and understand how that's going to be dealt with and sort out their organisation. I think that's a positive for them.
Yeah, and obviously, Bonotto's got a lot of work to do over the next year before Jonathan Wheatley steps in the building. So, it'd be interesting to see when those two forces come together. Let's take our second break on this episode. On the other side, we're going to be chatting about Andreas Stella contract extension.
God, so much Team Boss chat.
Team Boss chat today.
TBC.
Welcome back, everyone. There was a recent meeting of the F1 Commission, and an interesting idea was apparently floated. So, reported by Autosport, the idea of a wildcard system being introduced to Formula One to offer race opportunities for rookie drivers was put up for discussion. The idea was believed to revolve around offering a greater opportunity for these young or rookie drivers to gain experience with an extra car entered at certain races. There was a fairly swift conclusion that it would not be a good move for teams or fans. But although the wildcard idea has been shelved for now, F1 and teams still want to evaluate ways to give rookies more track time, potentially from extra practice sessions or maybe other means. Harry, was this rightly rejected? What do you think?
Can't wait for this.
Got a really, really novel idea here, guys.
Oh, have you? I've got quite a novel idea. Yeah, let's hear your novel idea.
I reckon, actually, our novel idea may be the same thing.
Right, okay.
You want to give more young drivers the opportunity to get into F1.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that currently is to have more cars. How do you have more cars? Don't put the burden on the current teams to have a third car. Why don't you just let more teams into F1?
Crikey. That is a good one.
No, it's not. That is awful. What are you thinking?
The garages can't take it, mate. You're putting too much strain on the facility.
Yeah.
Think of the garages.
Think of the garages, but it's okay for some teams to have 3 cars. Why was this even proposed? Can they not see how stupid this looks?
They just can't be American, mate. That's the rule.
Yeah.
Unless you're Gene Haas, who doesn't know anyone.
Yeah, true. He doesn't count because he doesn't know anyone. Yeah, look, this is an infuriating idea because they've got a better solution lying right in front of them, presented to them by a man called Michael and his
Michael,
not Scott Andretti for clarification. Could be Michael Scott. They have the solution here to help more young drivers get into F1, and in fact, could be more teams. We don't just want to limit to Andretti. Let's have more in. I see Otmar Safnauer is looking at he's working on another entry into F1, which is excellent. Go on, son. He just hires all the people that were fired from Alpine.
Childcare racing, come on.
It will be daddy daycare in Formula One.
Yeah, he just rebuilds Alpine and calls it Alpine. I don't know. Anyway, but that is the solution here. You don't need to start. I'm glad it got rejected because I'm not the massive fan of it anyway. But what? Don't need this solution in the first place. You have the good solution in front of you. Just let that be the solution, guys, and we can have more young drivers into F1 wildcard entries. I hate it. And I know we've spoken about how can we fix sprint races. This is good. We're making this into a sprint race round as well. But we've spoken about you could have, make it a young drivers race. I'd be more inclined to do that, but just having like random young drivers plonked into an F1 race. Why? That's not better.
That's not good.
That's not good. I don't want that. Just have them in another team, and then they can be in all the F1 races rather than just wildcard F1 races. Yeah, I hate it, and they're idiots for even suggesting this.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring Alpine into this whatsoever, but obviously this would have been about a week before Bruno Fuming handed his notice in. And this is probably what caused it. He's like, I cannot find the people to get a third entry out there.
I got any drivers.
I am out.
They can't get the cars on the planes because it'd be so heavy. 3 of them. That's too much. That's too heavy.
The guy fainted because he probably thought he would have to do it himself.
We'll put them on carrier ships. It takes 9 to 12 months to get it around the planet.
Good thing that this was rejected, Sam.
I mean, actually, weirdly enough, Harry, your novel idea was not actually my novel idea.
Oh, interesting.
My novel idea was the full sprint championship, and we have drained on about how sprint championships are just repeated mini versions of the race yet to come, and it ruins a lot of the excitement, and it's relatively repeated and dull. But if you were to give none of the current drivers any chance of sprint races and make it a sprint championship for rookie drivers, you have a sprint championship winner. Yeah, get them in the car, get them a go. It's a whole different thing that people can come up and turn for. It's more entertainment on the race week. You don't necessarily need to come and watch if you don't want to, But I think it's definitely the right solution as the bridge between Formula 2 and the practice sessions that they kind of have and actual main racing. People don't want wildcard entries for so many reasons. The teams don't want them because of the cost. You could barely fit anything new into the cost cap as it is, let alone a whole third car. They don't get chassis in. The garages are, imagine if every team ran a third car on the same race weekend. You'd have to go, well, I want it this weekend. Well, no, I want it this weekend. Okay, we're all going to have it this weekend. Now we've got 30 cars on the track, where 22 is apparently too many. So how does that work? I don't know. You also don't want to use these wildcards to take out a current prolific driver, or if it's a championship fight, or what if people have gone, what if it's Sao Paulo and Hamilton is so far out of the championship fight and they go, right, we'll put Behrman into the Ferrari seat next season at Sao Paulo instead of Hamilton. And Brazil erupts in fury because the guy that's closest to being Brazilian on the track at the moment, they don't get to see their favourite driver go racing.
I think that's fair, but also, that's just completely side note. That's nuts that's the case now with Hamilton in Brazil. It's bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, that he is considered the largest Brazilian figure in
Imagine
Formula 1.
saying that 15 years ago.
He's from Stevenage. He just likes Ayrton Senna. He's got no actual link to Brazil at all.
2008, they hated him.
He was public enemy number 1.
Yeah.
Okay, now he's an honorary citizen.
Felipe
Okay,
who? Anyway.
Felipe Pasta may as well be Italian. That's the worst joke I've ever made.
Unfortunately, it's not.
It's not. My point here is it's too expensive for the teams. It doesn't make sense logistically. It ruins entertainment for fans. It's wrong on every level. There are so many better alternatives that you could be employing. Harry makes you one with more teams. I makes you one with a different championship. There are other options as well that we're not going into because we've only got so much time. So, yeah, terrible idea. Glad it was rejected. Just stupid.
Yes. I am so confused by this because it was rejected swiftly by the teams, and understandably so. It just begs the question, who brought it up to begin with? Like, who was it? Was it Red Bull realizing they're going to have some conundrum with Lawson and Ricciardo coming up and figured this might be a way out to give Lawson some track? I just don't understand, like, who's presenting this. Because surely all the teams would have hated it, and they did all hate it. But someone's got to have brought it up to begin with. Anyway, I'm up for rookies getting more experience. I think it's something that's needed, but equally, this was never the way to go about it. Like you say, Sam. Imagine Verstappen from a key European race, or Hamilton from Brazil, or Hamilton from Silverstone. Can you imagine that? Like. It just would not. You pay a lot of money, and in F1 today, a lot of money to go to these races, to then find out that a few of you, maybe your favorite driver is not going to be there. That would be a real kick in the teeth. And then you get into the whole point of, well, what if they are still there and you get additional entries, and it just becomes very, very messy again. Think of the garages.
Somebody think of the garages.
Please think of the garages.
You've got 10 teams here vying to make a budget cap, right? And we know it is fairly restrictive for the top teams. And now you're adding a third car in. It's a logistical and a financial nightmare that just isn't needed. I appreciate it works in other sports, like MotoGP have this. It works for MotoGP. It doesn't work for F1. And that's fine. So you've both presented two options, which are very viable. I'll give F1 an even easier one. You currently only have to give up your car in one practice session per year for a rookie. Increase that number. More experience. It's so straightforward. We have 24 races now, and you have to give up your car once for a rookie in just one practice session. You still have 2 more of them in the current way that F1 works. Just increase that number. Increase that number to like 8. Like, you've still got. Obviously, we have sprint weekends where we've only got one practice session. Are drivers really that disadvantaged by missing FP1 and only doing FP2 and FP3?
If it's still taking them more than 2 hours to get themselves comfy on a car, what are you doing?
Do you remember who basically sat out the entirety of FP1 at Belgium?
Was it Lewis Hamilton?
Esteban Ocon.
Oh, yeah.
Had one of the best races of the day on Sunday. And just by the end of the weekend, him missing FP1 essentially just meant nothing, didn't it?
It's because he's the GOAT, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah, he's an exception based on how talented he is. But yeah, point being, I don't disagree with either of your solutions either. It's just, if you want a really, really easy way to give rookies more time, just give them more practice sessions within. Just make it happen. You don't have to do anything. Like, there's no barrier to it. Just do it.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. I mean, even if it went up to 3, it's not going to exactly hurt people, is it?
No. Let's move on to McLaren, because they have announced a multi-year contract extension for team principal Andrea Stella. Harry, do you think this is a good call?
Very good call. I think Andrea Stella's proved himself immensely, and the only blot in his copybook so far is probably the Hungarian team orders. I wouldn't say fiasco, but controversy. But for the most part, I've been very impressed by Andrea Stella and the way he's led that team. He's been very, very clear, and this is a guy who's been around at McLaren for quite a while. He moved over with Alonso in 2015 and obviously stuck it out then through the pain years, and is now being rewarded. And obviously before that, he was at Ferrari with him as his engineer. So he's got a lot of experience, and he's proven it here. And whilst I think we pointed this out on the we talked about Seidel and his involvement with McLaren. Whilst a lot of that, the success they're having now, I think you can pin down to him. Andrea Stella was still heavily involved and is now had to take that mantle, and it's easier said than done to actually execute the success that they've been building towards. So yeah, I think it's a very good call, and stability. Now that McLaren are, winning again, stability is going to be key in terms of, we've seen it with Mercedes, with Red Bull. The reason they've been winning so often is because they've had a lot of stability within their teams. Obviously, as already mentioned with Red Bull, now they're starting to lose that, and that begs the question as to whether they will keep winning. McLaren need to make sure that they don't have the same thing. So nailing Andrea Stella down is a wise move from marketing man Zach Brown, who says it's all his responsibility now.
Yeah, that's all he wanted. He just doesn't want to make the decision, so he needed to make this happen. This is a great call, quite obviously. And you're right about the stability in teams and how important that is. And it just helps recruitment so much, because anyone who is thinking of joining McLaren, lower down the totem pole, can look at this triumvirate of Stella, Norris, Piastri, all three of them locked in multi-years. They aren't going anywhere. And that stability matters when you're making that sort of call. You've got other teams at the moment and you're not sure exactly what's going to happen with the lineup in next year, and is there going to be a change in management? McLaren have made it very clear, this is the management structure and these are the key parts, and they aren't going anywhere. That will help them a lot in years to come. It is mildly hilarious how it is the complete opposite to their IndyCar program, because their IndyCar program could not be further away from that, having had 62 drivers in their car this year. But for the F1 side of things, it's working a lot. And obviously, look, Stella, he joined, like you say, he joined a long time ago. He's been in his role for a couple of years now. And they've definitely improved a lot since then. They've already got 366 points this season. Last season, they cleared 300 points for the first time in over 10 years. So they are making strides. This was a great call, in my opinion. Sam?
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's the expression that feels like it comes to mind. And they're on a continually up trajectory, which is where you want to be in Formula One. It feels like from pretty much Austria last season, they took a big step forward and they haven't really looked back. The line has been pretty much up and to the right, to quote a lovely expression from a dear friend of ours. And I just think that that's where you want to keep going. And stability is a key component of that instrument of moving upwards. What's also quite unique about McLaren is the relationship that I think Stella, Zach Brown, and the other kind of leaders of their departments have. It feels like the responsibility is far more shared between different areas at McLaren than it is maybe, for example, throughout Mercedes' dominant form. Toto Wolff was very much seen as that go-to guy. He was very much seen as the top of the pyramid. And of course, you had some big features in there, like James Allison, for example. But it feels like Stella is, very much the on-the-track team principal, and he works through that organizational element. But Zach Brown runs, a lot of the press components, the marketing, a lot of the PR. He's a guy in front of the camera a lot of the time. And you've got a lot of key personnel that we've seen move over recently who are involved in the technical side of things, that are happy to run their department. And we heard them create that pillar element that they almost spearheaded themselves. So it seems to be working for them. If they're all very comfortable in how they're adapting and working together, keep it running, keep developing it, keep evolving. So, yeah, good call. Glad to see also internal promotion taking place at a Formula One team. I really like that we're not just going straight outside immediately and going, this isn't working, let's go get someone else that's been fired from elsewhere a year ago and hope that works this time. It's great development. It's encouraging. It's rewarding. And I think that's a really good direction for a Formula One team to go into. So, great call.
Okay, we've got one more part of this episode to come right after this break. Okay, welcome back to the final part of today's episode. It's been a while, but we're going to be playing F1. Who are you?
Oh, it gives me like 80s cop sunset vibes,
I forgot that was even a jingle. Excellent work.
It's also very quiet.
It's still better than the other one.
Who are you? F1. F1.
I don't know what you mean.
So good.
Oh man, I definitely need to explain the rules of this one because it has been such a while. I'm sure many listening have never heard us play this one. It's a simple game. There are 6 questions, and there are 3 clues which lead to a particular driver. The guys will take it in turns to select a number. I will give those 3 clues, and then at the end of that, they have to guess who it is I'm talking about. Okay, let's start with Harry. What number would you like?
Number 2, please.
Number 2. Here are your 3 clues. I was born in what is now Croatia.
Oh, God.
My first F1 win was in 1971 with Ferrari. I won a driver's championship in the 1970s with Lotus. Who am I?
I don't know. Don't know.
Well, you're the king of guessing. You act like you don't know, and then you win 6 skills. So come on.
Whereas Ben's 1970s F1 knowledge is astounding, mine is absolutely terrible.
I don't have any knowledge.
What's
his knowledge?
I'm just vibes.
What a 1970s. I don't know. The only one I can think of is Emerson Fittipaldi, but he definitely wasn't born in what is now Croatia.
He's going to lie.
I actually don't know. I'll bail. I've got no idea.
All right. The correct answer, Mario Andretti.
Mario? He was born in what was Croatia?
So what is now Croatia? So at the time was
now
part
Croatia,
of
sorry.
Italy. But yes, he won his first race in 71 with Ferrari, and then won the Drivers' Championship later in that decade with Lotus.
That was me thinking Roland Ratzenberger. So glad it wasn't my fault.
It definitely wasn't him.
No.
Not him.
I think he was, 11 on that first title? Something like that.
Sure, that sounds about right.
I think he was born in the 60s. So
Yeah, that's probably right.
It's a good
Sam,
start.
what number would you like?
Number 6, please, Meg.
Number 6. I competed in 6 seasons and had wins in 4 of them.
Ooh.
2 of my teammates were Marc Genet and Antonio Pizzonia.
Oh, for God's sake.
I was disqualified from the Canadian Grand Prix in back-to-back years.
I literally don't know. Harry sat there like, let me answer.
Let me in.
I don't know. I got a clue. My brain defers to about 8 different drivers on these. Who are you?
It's not Ratzenberger.
Is it? No, this is my answer. I just want to be like, is it Shogalazy? Oh God, if it is Shogalazy, that's gonna be hilarious.
Oh, it's not John Lazy, no.
Okay, but imagine that would be so funny.
Imagine. Any ideas on this one, Harry?
I haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
Is it Mr. Chunky?
Yeah, Juan Pablo Montoya.
Oh, if only you got a point.
Yeah, no, that's a real shame. We're doing really well so far.
It's
Twice
a
in
weird
a
one.
row.
Yeah, it was disqualified from 2 Canadian Grand Prix in a row.
Did he, ignore the pit lane exit or something like that?
That was one of them. I can't quite remember what the other one
Threw a
was.
Snickers wrapper on the track.
Yeah,
or
it was because he's chunky. They got rid of him.
overweight.
But if I can overweight, no.
So that's 0-0. Back to you, Harry. What number would you like?
Number 1.
Okay, number 1. I finished top 10 in the Drivers' Championship 7 years in a row. I have multiple race wins, but I've never taken 2 wins on the same continent.
What?
I scored on debut in 2015.
What was the one about say the one about the continents again? Never taken the.
I have multiple race wins in F1, but I've never taken 2 wins on the same continent.
I know who it is.
Carlos Sainz.
Carlos Sainz is the correct answer.
God damn it, it's the only one I've ever known concretely.
So, I mean, very likely that it wouldn't be 8 years in a row at the end of this season that he's finished in the top 10, of course. But yeah, he's won in Australia, he's won in Singapore, and he's won at Silverstone, but none of those are on the same continent. So, 1-0. Sam, what number would you like?
Geographical knowledge here with late breaking. Love that. I'll go number 4, please, Ben.
Number 4. My first F1 race was at Indianapolis. My last podium was at Baku. And I finished my last 2 seasons in 12th place in the Drivers' Championship.
Oh, I feel like I should know this. Indianapolis was the first race.
Yes.
Okay. When was the last time we raced at Indianapolis? Like 2008, 7? Yeah? I don't know. I'm not expecting you guys to give me answers either. This is just my internal thinking.
The listeners need to answer you for you.
Yeah. Calling, phone a friend. So what year was it at Baku? Did you say a year? Or am I just...
I didn't say a year.
Okay.
My last podium finish was at Azerbaijan.
Last podium finish at Azerbaijan. Harry again is screaming at me. And he finished 12th the last 2 years that they were in the sport.
Yes.
Yeah, Chief, I don't know. I want to say like Bottas or Stroll, but that's not the case. So,
Harry?
Sebby Vet.
Yeah.
Oh, that felt too obvious. I was like, he didn't debut at Indianapolis.
Yeah, I forgot that, but yeah, he must have done because it was after.
Yeah, because I was there like, because we joked about how he finished back-to-back 12th seasons. I was like, it's too obvious. It's not Sebastian Vettel.
His one race for BMW.
Of course it was. That's, yeah.
And the slightly confusing part about the last podium finish at Azerbaijan, of course, he did finish on the podium in Hungary later that year, but he was disqualified from that race. So,
of course he was.
Last time he was on a podium, technically, I guess, would have been Hungary, but his last podium finish was Baku. Harry, over to you.
Oh, no.
Oh, come on, there's 2. You could get one of them.
5?
Yes!
Okay. I competed in 3 different decades. My only race win came on my birthday, as in his birthday, not my
Not
birthday.
Ben Hockey's birthday. Good.
I had the same teammate for 5 seasons between 1993 and 1997. Who am I?
The same teammate for 5 seasons, 93, 97.
I swear to God, if it's who I'm thinking of, and I've once again guessed this.
Gerhard Berger? No.
Surely not.
It's not Gerhard Berger.
No, I don't know. That was a stupid answer, but I'll take the L.
You are about as close as you can possibly be.
John Lacey, isn't it?
It's Gerhard Berger's teammate, Jean Alesi. Yeah, his only race win at the Canadian Grand Prix came on his birthday.
You race in the 80s, Lacey?
Just about, yes. 89. And then his last race, and just about in the 2000s as well. He's not many drivers have done it, but he's one of the few that have raced in 3 different decades.
Valid.
Which leaves, Sam, what number would you like?
3.
Oh, gosh.
Quiet 3. Less heard.
Okay, here are your 3 clues. I was the first driver to represent my country in F1. I only scored once in my F1 career in 2005.
Oh, for God's sake. It's not either person that I wanted it to be.
I finished 26th in the Drivers' Championship in 2011.
Did we have that many drivers in 2011? Good Lord.
No, he was just that bad.
Just drop him down a few
2011 was a 24 car championship and he's finished 26th.
That's hilarious. I'm trying to think of solo entrants because obviously I had Kubica in mind when you said first entry. I had Rio Haryanto, of course.
Yeah.
An icon.
To the sofa.
To the sofa, which is a joke that no one will ever understand. Okay, what countries? That's the one for me that I need to. 26th place.
Yeah, not good.
26, Jeremy. That is insane. Harry, do you know?
I think I do know.
That's painful for you, isn't it? If you want to swap the science answer around, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'll do you a swap.
Yeah, do you swap for this one? I haven't got a name coming to mind. I won't dwell on it too long, so I don't know.
Harry?
The cucumber.
Oh, Ragunathan.
Lorraine Carthaginian.
I'll say Ragunathan. I got the wrong bloody bloke.
Was not
That's an
Ragunathan.
insult to Carthaginian.
I mean, they're both a cat of cucumbers.
Yeah, so he was the first driver to represent India in F1. Of course, Karun Chandhok later became the second driver from India, but he at the time was the first driver. He scored at that infamous 2005 United States Grand Prix by virtue of being there.
Finishing.
Having the right tyres.
And he finished 26th in the Drivers' Championship in 2011 when he raced for HRT.
How? How did he done that?
Well, there were at least 3 drivers that raced for HRT that
Ricciardo
season.
was one, wasn't he?
Yes, but there was Leo
C.
Yeah.
So he finished behind them as well.
Yeah, so I'm guessing there must have been another team that also had 3 entries that year or something along those lines. But
excellent work.
Well,
Formula One was a great time when we had more teams in it.
Yeah, that's the thing we always have to caution about when we say that it'd be great to have more teams. We don't mean those teams.
We'd like legitimate teams, please.
Yes, please.
Not ones we've never heard of.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Sam, if you wouldn't mind getting us out of here.
Woo! Another LB game, another 0-pointer for me. I hope you're more successful because that was a great start to my week coming up. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of our summer break. We love you. We'll be back, of course, midweek. And we've got Patreon content as well coming up later on in the week as well. So, if you're not a Patreon subscriber, you're thinking, I really miss more F1 chit chat, then come on down. It's so... Harry, how much would you pay for it, mate?
Oh, probably about $12.
Yeah, which is accurate, but I've heard a mate out there I can hear the ATM going. What does he think it's worth?
Yeah, well, I know a guy who probably would say it's about $3,000 a month. But
crikey,
yeah, he's an idiot, so don't listen to him.
But honestly, it's that good value. I'm not shocked that it is that much money. 2 extra episodes, a classic episode, power rankings, birthday shout-outs, early events early tickets to events, and more. Get involved. Come check it out.
Early tickets
3,000.
to events.
Wink, wink. Hey,
nothing to hear here.
I have a twitchy eye, as do my colleagues.
Get my pen out to sign a contract very quickly.
Stay tuned. Anyway, thanks for listening, folks. We'll be back later on in the week with more F1 chit chat. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
And I've been Harry Eade.
And remember, keep breaking late.